Individuals worth tens of billions of dollars sometimes pay absolute zero in federal income tax, and they don't break a single law to do it. When you work a standard job, the government takes its cut before the money ever hits your bank account. Between federal brackets, state levies, and payroll taxes, you can easily hand over up to 50 cents on every dollar you earn. This happens because the United States runs two entirely separate tax codes. One is designed for people who trade their time for wages. The other is built for people who own things. If you buy shares in a company for $1,000 and that stock shoots up to $3,000, your net worth goes up. But in the eyes of the IRS, you haven't earned a single cent until you sell. Those are unrealized gains, and they are completely legally invisible. Working people are taxed by default. The ultra-wealthy bypass that system entirely by following one strict rule: they never sell. They rely on a mechanism known as buy, borrow, buy. Step one is accumulation. You build a portfolio of assets that rapidly appreciate in value, specifically corporate equity, and you hold on to them indefinitely. Warren Buffett built Berkshire Hathaway from the ground up, and he has kept his shares for decades as they grew from pennies to hundreds of thousands of dollars each. This chart shows the scale of this strategy in practice. On the left is Buffett's towering net worth of well over $100 billion. Down here on the right, barely visible, is the taxable income he reported between 2015 and 2018, around $11 to $25 million a year. Jeff Bezos operates the exact same way, keeping his fortune heavily locked up in Amazon stock. Between 2014 and 2018, Bezos watched his total wealth grow by $99 billion. Over that exact same period, his reported taxable income was just $4.22 billion. Less than 5% of his actual economic gain was visible to the IRS. Hoarding equity builds an impenetrable tax-free fortress on paper, but you cannot use an unrealized gain to buy a private jet or fund a lifestyle. You need liquid cash. Under the tax code, borrowed money is classified as debt. It is not taxable income. If you need $10 million in cash, selling your stock triggers millions in capital gains taxes. The alternative is walking into a major private bank. This flowchart shows how a securities-based line of credit works. You pledge your stock as collateral to the bank. In exchange, the bank gives you millions in liquid cash at highly favorable interest rates, and you pay zero taxes on the transfer. Elon Musk relies heavily on extreme asset leverage to fund his external acquisitions without liquidating his core holdings. To execute his $44 billion buyout of Twitter, Musk initially pledged over $60 billion in Tesla shares just to secure his margin loans. Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, uses the exact same borrowing mechanism to fund massive personal and philanthropic projects. He pledged over $4 billion of his Oracle stock to bankroll everything from an extensive real estate portfolio to his America's Cup racing syndicate. The ultra-wealthy do not spend their own money. They use their assets as leverage to spend the bank's money, completely tax-free. Eventually, a multi-million-dollar bank loan has to be paid back. This graphic illustrates the continuous loop of the strategy. Because the untaxed assets appreciate faster than the low interest rate of the loan, the borrower simply takes out a new loan against the newly generated equity to pay off the old debt. The cycle continues until death. The loans are finally settled against the estate. The underlying collateral zeroes out the debt completely, and the money never touches a personal income tax node. This entire financial architecture operates completely insulated from standard tax collection agencies. Trading time for wages keeps you in a heavily taxed reality. Owning and leveraging assets grants you access to a parallel, permanently tax-free existence. This chart shows the wealth growth of the 25 richest Americans. Their collective net worth climbed $41 billion, yet they paid just 3.4% in income taxes. Conversely, an average wage earner making $60,000 gives up roughly 20 to 30%. Look at individual tax records from that ProPublica data. Jeff Bezos watched his wealth surge by $99 billion between 2014 and 2018. His true tax rate on that growth was less than 1%. In earlier years like 2007 and 2011, his federal income tax bill was exactly zero. He didn't break the law. This zero-tax reality is a direct result of how the United States tax code treats asset owners compared to wage earners. If your net worth is tied up in stock and real estate, you play by a completely different set of rules. To bypass the income tax system entirely, the ultra-wealthy use a legally bulletproof three-step financial loop. It is called buy, borrow, die. Step 1 is to buy. Billionaires focus their capital on acquiring assets that reliably go up in value, things like index funds, private businesses, and real estate. Then they hold them. By explicitly refusing to sell, they avoid triggering any capital gains taxes, leaving their wealth growing untouched. But if you never sell your stock and you take a tiny symbolic salary, how do you actually pay for your private jets, mega yachts, and daily life? That brings us to step 2, borrow. Instead of liquidating their holdings for cash, the ultra-wealthy use their massive unsold stock portfolios as collateral to secure massive personal loans from major banks. This animated graphic shows the basic math that makes this profitable. If a billionaire's portfolio grows by 10% a year, and they negotiate a loan against it at a 3% interest rate, they net a clean 7% growth while living off borrowed money. Because the IRS legally classifies that borrowed cash as debt rather than income, it does not trigger a tax bill. You owe 0 federal income taxes on loan proceeds. The result is a highly efficient financial engine. They fund their lavish lifestyles through cheap debt, while their portfolio continues compounding entirely untaxed. There is a lethal trap built into this math. Extreme leverage only works if your assets hold their value. If the market suddenly crashes, the bank will issue a margin call, forcing you to sell your plummeting assets to cover the debt. Bill Hwang ran a family office called Archegos Capital, heavily relying on borrowed money against his stock positions. When his collateral collapsed in March 2021, the margin calls hit. He lost $20 billion in essentially 2 days. While over-leveraging concentrated positions will destroy you, this borrowing strategy remains mathematically stable for highly diversified billionaires, especially during long-running bull markets. To complete the loop without ever paying the piper, the billionaire simply has to hold the debt and the assets until the end of their life. Step 3 is to die. This line graph illustrates the stepped-up basis. Imagine buying an early share of Amazon stock at $2, holding it until it's worth $180. Sell it alive, and you owe capital gains tax on $178 of growth. But the moment the owner dies and passes that stock to their children, the tax code resets the original cost basis. The heirs inherited valued at $180. All decades of embedded gains are erased completely. The heirs receive the portfolio tax-free. They sell off just enough stock at the newly stepped-up basis to clear out the lifestyle loans their parent accumulated, and they pocket the billions in remaining surplus. This morbid tax mechanism is the final key to the loop. It successfully transfers vast generational wealth, using death to wash away decades of capital gains taxes. You don't need a Wall Street family office to use this math. Regular people use smaller-scale versions of this loop every day. If you own a home that has gone up in value, you're holding an appreciating asset. When you open a home equity line of credit, or HELOC, you are borrowing untaxed cash against your home's equity without actually selling the property. Real estate investors do the exact same thing when they execute a cash-out refinance on a rental property. They pull out their accumulated equity tax-free while keeping the property and continuing to collect the monthly rent. Standard retail brokerages like Fidelity and Schwab also offer security-backed lines of credit. For accounts that meet minimum size thresholds, often around $100,000, regular investors can borrow cash directly against their retirement stock portfolios. Anyone willing to shift their mindset from viewing assets as things to sell for cash to viewing them as permanent collateral can utilize these exact same tax mechanics. Because the stepped-up basis is widely considered the largest single advantage in the American tax code, the political pressure to close the loophole is mounting. Lawmakers have introduced specific legislation aimed directly at this strategy. Senator Ron Wyden recently proposed the Billionaire Income Tax Act, which would force the ultra-wealthy to pay taxes on their unrealized stock gains every single year, regardless of whether they sell. The executive branch has made similar pushes. President Biden previously proposed taxing the unrealized gains of any household worth over $100 million. While those proposals are still debated, the rules currently remain unchanged. The framework is there for anyone to use. Start building appreciating assets. View those assets as collateral instead of a piggy bank, and plan your wealth generationally. Ultimately, wealth in America is dictated by structure. Success depends on realizing that how you earn your money matters far more than the total amount on your paycheck.